We then get back to both Nagi and Reo, where we see that Nagi is still sitting comfortably down on the ground, while Reo is standing by his side crying. Nagi thinks back to one of their earlier moments, and calls out Rio's name. He starts to get up, and says that he has no regrets. Nagi explains that it's just like Ego said, and that he was satisfied. He's finally standing beside Reo now, and he tells him that to win against Isagi, and play soccer with Reo forever, only having that would be enough for him. However, he himself admits that a dream like that wasn't nearly enough, thinking that to survive in Blue Lock, his dream was too small and too childish. Nagi starts to scratch his neck and says that if that time he hadn't won against Isagi and gotten angry, and if Reo wouldn't have spoiled him like he did back in the Manshine City vs Bastard Munchin game, then just maybe the future would have looked different. Hearing those words coming out of Nagi only makes Reo more emotional, and he starts to cry even more. But even then, Nagi continues and apologizes to Reo, saying that rather than wanting to become the world's best, he was more scared of losing Reo in the end. Nagi then starts to look down towards the ground and apologizes for not finding a new dream. Even after Reo managed to become strong on his own, Nagi chose to still pass to Reo, so he apologizes for that and for not taking that shot against Otoya. He continues and is about to apologize for not keeping his promise, but then Reo goes forward and puts his hand on Nagi's shoulder and tells him that it's enough. We then see Rio's face, and he looks absolutely destroyed and crushed as he tells Nagi to not apologize anymore, and that Nagi didn't do anything wrong at all. Nagi then looks down towards Reo, who continues, and even though Nagi didn't like soccer at first, he still tagged along for Rio's dream. Reo continues, and Reo apologizes for forcing Nagi, and says that he's sorry for making him try his best. He tells Nagi that he doesn't have to do that anymore, telling Nagi that it's alright, and that he shouldn't apologize for anything. Nagi just looks at Reo with a stone face before he grabs Rio's hand and says his name. He puts away Rio's hand from his shoulder and holds his wrist and tells Reo that he was happy. Reo looks a bit shocked but relieved while hearing that. Nagi then tells him that Reo is pushy, selfish, and scared. However, when he was with Reo, Nagi was able to meet the new him many times, explaining that he got fired up by soccer all the way back in the first selection, and that in the second selection he also became frustrated and lame too. Not to mention how many cruel things he said to Reo, but even then, in the Neo-Egoist League, he knew that the feeling of winning felt extremely good. But even then, he still kept thinking about how lonely he would be without Reo. Those words just hit Reo right to his chest, as it even got dark around him. Nagi then continues, and says that Reo showed him the light, and even though he was a pain, everything that came after Nagi met Reo, he will treasure it for life. We then see some of their sweet moments together, mostly from their school days. Reo continues to cry, but Nagi then releases Rio's hand, and tells him that probably he lost because he started thinking like this, and because he valued being with Reo more than anything, and because of all that combined, he stopped being a genius. He then tells Reo that if they had just passed by each other that day, then they would have surely become stronger, and maybe even the best in the world. As he says that, we can see the vision of them winning the World Cup together slowly, but surely fading away as Nagi tells Reo that their world's best ends here. Nagi, while looking more nonchalant and stoned-faced than ever before, puts his hand on Rio's head and says goodbye to him. While holding onto Rio's head, he tells Reo to become the world's best on his own, and hearing those words is just too much for Reo to handle, so his tears can't stop rolling down his face, and he looks so sad. However, there's of course one more player who's looking intensely at this, and that's of course Isagi, who screams Nagi's name as he is walking away. Isagi looks shocked as he is seeing Nagi leave. However, Nagi waits up and looks back towards Isagi, who actually starts to cry, and his aura starts to appear around him as he screams at Nagi not to quit soccer, as we see him in the next panel. With that, Blue Lock Phase 2 and the Neo-Egoist League are completed, and as Nagi walks out of the loser's gate, we see that the next phase is, of course, the U20 World Cup. We also see both Reo and Isagi crying their eyes out as they are watching Nagi.
Still hungry for more? Subscribe and devour the next play.